Zatch Bell is my fourth favorite anime at my top 5. Zatch Bell is a show that I hold very close to my heart. I've watched it ever since I was a kid. I'll do it a solid. I will do this video for it. I will do the Iceberg video for the series. Now, the series has a lot of information in it, and this is a good way to gauge how much you know, and it may surprise yourself either way with how much I've researched. Side note, most of this I've had to research in order to make this whole list, which, small spoiler, there's over 100 facts here, and I'll be pulling them up as I go along, so try and stick with me, and let's begin.
You need to help me win, Kyo!
You got it, Zatch!
Let's go, Tio! Yeah!
Zatch had only acquired 7 spells. These spells being Zakir, Reshield, Jakirador, Balzakirga, Zakirga, and Zakirzum. Brago, Zatch's main rival, was able to acquire up to 9 spells in the anime. These being Raise, Gravity Ray, Gagano Race, Ion Gravity Ray, Yoga Gravidon, Babear Gravidon, Badum, if I'm saying them right, sorry, Badon Gravity Ray, and Reorb Rays. Every 1,000 years, 100 Mamodo are picked from the Mamodo world and sent to Earth to duke it out with all the other Mamodo to decide who becomes king of the Mamodo world. Each contestant has to find a partner so they can properly fight another Mamodo without it becoming unfair. At times, the fights can become 2-on-2, 2-on-4, or however many more. The most well-known games out of the Zatch Bell series are Zatch Bell Mamodo Battle and Zatch Bell Mamodo Fury, which are both on PS2 and GameCube. The anime was able to get its own block on Toonami back in 2005 during March, and then it ended in 2008. This was a good way to get people familiar with the series in the West. Maloro Z was the initial name of Zophis, who was the main antagonist of his own arc, and was first shown in episode 12. Burn the book of a Mamodo sends that respective Mamodo to the Mamodo world, and this is the way to progress through the tournament, where the last Mamodo with an unburned book becomes the king of the Mamodo world. There have been times where even if the book is burning, the partner can still say and cast out the spells of the Mamodo before they go away for good. Usually burning the book is very straightforward, and all you need is to attack the book or light the book on fire. Though there have been a number of times where if a Mamodo is badly damaged heavily enough, the book will just start burning on its own. The children and the other monstrous beings are always called Mamodo in the dub, though in the original, in the manga, they are called demons. One can easily speculate this after seeing Kyo bathing Zatch and he finds horns on Zatch's head. Demons tend to have horns on their heads. The Zatch Bell series has its own trading card game, or a TCG, where players have their own spellbook, which is the biggest feature, and if one were to lose all their pages, that player loses the match. At times people point out that Zatch's voice sounds very familiar. It is the same Debbie that also voices Jimmy in the Jimmy Neutron show. Kyo's voice actor is a very renowned voice actor of other shows and games, some of his most popular being, of course, Kyo, but also Yvonne from the Valkyria Chronicles 2 game, as well as Bartz from the Final Fantasy series. One can see a whole lot of localization happening for the Zatch Bell anime, which changes a lot of the names, such as Zatch being originally Gash, Kiyomaru turned into Kyo, Tia's name was originally Tio, Ponygon was localized from Umagon, and many other cases, even with the spell names. The Zatch Bell manga was published by Shogakukan, while the English publisher was Viz Media. and it was able to be featured in the weekly Shonen Sunday magazine. The dub for the anime was made to be more child-friendly, with much less usage of swearing and virtually a complete removal of blood. While the Mamodo and human partners tend to be very close to each other in order to progress with their friendship or gain more spells, pairings between Mamodo and partner don't become romantic for each other. The pairing that we see this with, however, is with Lien and Wanrei, who are indeed in love with each other. Anyone can see this after watching just their debut episode and then the reappearances throughout the series. After the defeat of Kalulu and sending her back to the Mamodo world, her last words were her want of the Mamodo king to be a benevolent king, which Zatch takes to heart and becomes his main goal throughout the series, to become a kind, benevolent king. Very often throughout the series, Zatch, while not doing any spells, attacks on his own, and he tends to attack with his head a lot, if not punching or kicking people. Let's see, after the first fight with Raycom, he thinks of better ways of using Zatch's powers so he can win the Mamodo battles. One way being to point to shoot, pointing to the opponent with 2 fingers. And this has become a relatively iconic thing. Wherever Kyo is pointing, Zatch aims that way, especially after realizing Zatch seems to forget what he's done prior to firing a Zakir attack. In one of the early episodes, Kyo becomes very fearful of the spells, and thought before that the attacks for the spells just keep getting bigger, and more dangerous, and they are only attacks. However, this is not the case. A well-seasoned fan will be able to tell you that not all the spells are attacks, and while the spells do get stronger over time, the spells become more like utility spells, with some users more than others, such as Jakirador, which acts as a sort of a magnet, as well as Brago's Gravity Ray, which is used to immobilize his opponent, and the biggest example being conjuring spells, which are centered around transformation and not attacking, which is the vast majority of his spells. It said before that Kyo's IQ is 180, though this is very inconsistent, whereas the first time he uses Jakirador, he should have actually realized that, yes, it is indeed a magnet spell, though in the depiction of the anime, it makes him seem slower than one would expect. In the manga, he was able to solve an extremely elaborate problem. He solves it in a few seconds. While not exactly outright stated, the only way to come back to the human world is to participate in yet another Mamodo tournament on Earth. While one spellbook is burning, one cannot put out the flames no matter how hard they try, forcibly and inevitably returning a Mamodo to the Mamodo world, which the time span of being taken out of Earth at least seems to be anywhere from 30 seconds to a full minute. A vast majority of spells in the anime seems to have been marginally localized to where it is easier to say for a more American audience. There are many examples of this, such as Zakiru being localized to Zakir, Jakirudo being localized to Jakirador, and Rashirudo being localized for Shield, again to be easier to say for Western audiences. While very obvious from the get-go, one can speculate easily that Zatch and Zeno are related, though it has been confirmed that yes, Zatch and Zeno are indeed brothers. Makoto Kawada is the name of the creator and the mangaka of the Zatch Bell manga. While Zatch Bell is his most popular work, his previous works were Birdman, Newtown Heroes, In My Blade, which Zatch Bell is after that, Brief Warrior Hero, Bonbon, Alsora, Classroom, Oyaju Rider, Animal Land, and Vector Ball. He seems to have started out as his career as a mangaka back in 1999 with Newtown Heroes. The total number of English dub episodes was 104. The total number of spells that Zatch acquired in the manga is 14. The total number of spells that Brago acquired throughout the manga was up to 20 spells in total. The most spells Mamodo has ever had, which I know, very crazy to think about. This can tell you just how close sharing Brago became, and just how powerful Brago has become. And now the manga has shown some sort of power creep happening, to where towards the end of the manga, characters become extremely powerful. Everyone else beforehand, early in the series, cannot even come close to matching these characters, such as Acheron and the last antagonist of the series, as well as Zatch, Brago, or even just the main teams have become, as well as Fandom being brought into the picture, who could destroy Japan. While Fulgore can be seen as a very jokey, gaggy character, he's had his cool moments, which are exemplified by his other face. Sometimes he comes off as a mentor to Conchame and has done charity work before, for say hospitals or just helping out kids in general. The final villain of the series is Clearnote, with his baby partner, don't ask me how this is even possible, Vino, whose spells feature obliteration or, as what's said, annihilation spells, which are very much the strongest type of spell that we've seen, which very few can even handle just how powerful his spells are, even be able to snuff out any spell that comes into contact with his, which anyone can tell you, yeah, that's very busted. Further in the manga, where it was around 10 Mamodo left in the competition, it is then revealed what really happens when you get taken out of the tournament and return to the Mamodo world. You do not come back physically, but you come back as a soul. Zatch and the others catch a glimpse of what the Mamodo world looks like and is completely empty. Whoever the next king is can decide the fate of all those souls that return to the Mamodo world, which gives very heavy weight to the circumstance in becoming the next king of the world. Balzacariga is shown over and over again to be an extremely powerful spell. However, there is also the true version of it where it can become even larger, and the true Balzacariga has a major side effect to where not only can it obliterate the opponent, but it also eats away at the user as well, making it an extremely dangerous spell. In the Zatch Bell movie, the first movie, Zatch was able to use a team-based spell, which actually, as far as I've seen, has never been a thing for the series. But this has to be said by Kiyo, Bagumi, Fulgore, and Mr. Sunbeam in order to cast this very large spell. It is a lightning phoenix, and it is Furuto Furusu. The one way to count this in Zatch's total repertoire of spells, this would be the 15th spell. There are no differences between Zatch Bell and Mamodo battles, to where the US copy is actually inferior to the Japanese versions. The Japanese copies are able to let you charge, and Ponygon is able to have his partner Sunbeam, whereas the US version has Ponygon without any spells, making him pretty much being the worst character in the game. This also features Maestro, one of the other opponents that Zatch fights in the game as well. And also how Beering and Gustav are only available in the US American version, as well as the both versions have their own story exclusives. Before I mentioned about 2 games, where the Zatch Bell series has actually a total of 10 video games. These being Zatch Bell Electric Arena for the Game Boy Advance, Zatch Bell Makai No Bookmark, which is a RPG for the Game Boy as well, Zatch Bell Electric Arena 2, also for the GBA, Zatch Bell The Card Battle game for GBA as well, and then the last one on GBA being Dream Tag Tournament, which the time span of these 5 games being 2 years, and Dream Tag Tournament having the most content, Zatch Bell Friendship Tag Battle for the PS2, Zatch Bell Friendship Tag Battle Full Power for the GameCube, Zatch Bell Mamodo Fury and Mamodo Battles, then Zatch Bell Go-Go with Demon Fight for both PS2 and GameCube as well. This last game being released in December 15th, 2005. Since Zatch Bell content really dried up around the 2010s, there has been no Zatch Bell PS3 or PS4 game. Now this one can be moved up, but I put it here anyway. Raycon was a very interesting start to be Zatch's very first opponent. Raycon was used to rob banks and help a man become a very rich man thanks to having his spells abused. And since it's very implied that, or even what's shown that he's a very effective fighter, this stacks up to Zatch and Kyo as a team who have had no prior experience to Mamodo battles. Raycon's blue book clashing very heavily with Zatch's red book, and then the fact that Raycon comes off as a very cold, menacing little kid, and he actually liked being abused and saw it as a way of becoming stronger as a Mamodo. So the stuff happening with Raycon becomes very dark really fast. One could see this coming, since it's very much a trope to have a shonen main character have a love interest, but Tio has shown that she has feelings for Zatch, one instance being her fantasizing, confessing to Zatch, as well as having a scene following after that of finding the best time to confess to Zatch, which became a bit of a hijinks thing during that night. Every so often in the show, in the manga, and even in the games, heart power is referred to power within, or even other variations on that, without it being fully exactly explained. Though at times the partners do talk about this. Heart power refers to the power source in which the books rely on to cast out the spells. So this is the power source of the Zashbow world. Heart power depends on how much feeling that you put in a spell, so they can measure out how much they need or how little they can put out for a spell, depending on how much they want to output. And then one can see this as energy anyway, since it is pretty much explained as the more feelings that you put into a spell, the more the spellbook draws out of your body. So yes, a good amount of the time, the partners of the Mamodo tend to be very tired at the end of a battle if not careful enough, or if they had to output all their power to defeat their opponent. The Zatch Bell anime has up to 150 episodes with 2 OVAs. If one were to count the OVAs, the total would be 152 episodes, with the last episode being aired in March 2006, and the second OVA being aired in May 2006. Further in the manga, Kyo was taken out and put into, let's say, a deep sleep, and after awakening, he awakens a very special, unique ability called Answer Talker. Answer Talker being the same thing, actually, that Xeno's partner DeFord had, which allows someone to find the correct solution or answer to a problem, where an Answer Talker user has it activated when they have spirals in their eyes. Zatch's dad isn't the king of Mamodo world, King Bell. He put Zeno in very rigorous training. He also gave Zeno a very strong special clock. The Zatch Bell series was able to have 2 films, first being Zatch Bell 101st Devil, the second being Zatch Bell Attack of Mega Vulcan, where one can easily see that the second movie is a lot more jokey than the first one. Both films being exclusively released in Japan only. However, both films were able to receive localization, translation, and English subtitles, as well as their own DVDs, by December 2004 and April of 2018. Ra was the first Mamodo to best Zatch in a fight, whereas up to this point, Zatch was able to win his fights relatively soundly. However, this time, there's nothing that Zatch or Kyo could do to win against Brago. Brago could have very much burned Zatch's book if he really wanted to, but thanks to Sherry, that didn't become the case. As one can notice, the Mamodos themselves do not have nationalities, since they are all from the Mamodo world. The partners themselves, while admittedly most being from Japan, have various nationalities that are underlooked throughout the series, such as descendants of Finland, Dutch, England, North America, one from Uganda, and I'll just put the rest on the screen right now. I can only find this sort of information in the Zatch Bell Mamodo Battle game in its galleries mode. this is pretty much on the speculation side on my part. As far as the origin of the spell books, what I have here is it said that Raikou was inspired from a quote-unquote Western magic story with a nature completely different from Zatch Bell's to create Zatch's spellbook. Now, what this sounds like to me, let's just say out of a few sources of mine, that what I deduce is that he's talking about the Necronomicon, which was made in one of the many things that are from Lovecraft stories, which are very horror based. The Necronomicon itself has some imagery that is very similar to that of the spellbook if you look at the cover for it, and the shape of these two books are very similar as well. And while the Necronomicon has a very lengthy history, not going to go over that here, it has been said that it has been used to cast spells, at least in other media. If by some chance I make a part 2 of this, I will address more of it and find some more parallels. But for now, that's all I have for the origin of the spellbook. So I was initially going to have this as game-only characters, but these turned out to be movie characters that were included in the games. So what we have here is Wiseman and Kodaha, as well as Akatsuki and Sakurada. As far as I've seen, they're only in the first Zatch Bell Mamodo battle game, which is before the US's Mamodo battle. Like there's like a game before that. Like I know it's quite confusing. As one goes through the series, you will find a lot of antagonistic or straight up evil Mamodo, which turns out to be over a quarter of the total number of partners and Mamodo alike. However, this means that most Mamodo are actually good people, but the evil Mamodo tend to be on the forefront. By the time the remainder of the Mamodo that were still left in the competition were able to see the current state of the Mamodo world, the last 10 were Zatch, Tia, Conchime, Clearnote, Acheron, Brago, Curio, Form, and Earth. Now, this took me a long time to notice, but the first stage in the Zatch Bell Ring Tag Team Battle game is actually a remix of the third opening of the Zatch Bell anime.
I have some live footage for this because at one point I said 26, another point I said 27, so I was all over the place. So I had to double check, and like this last double check, I'm not that at the end of the video. Probably with this other thing I'll see, but alright. So there are 31 video game exclusive spells in the series. I did another recount and I just remembered the last one, and those would be okay. So we have 4 for Polygon, 1 for Brago, which is the Gravidon spell, and then most of these is from Mamodo Fury. 5 for Rogue Nose, again Mamodo Fury. 3 for Kalulu, Mamodo Fury. 4 for Hyde. 4 for Sugino. 4 from Fane. 2 from Zeno. Like for instance, he's never had Balzakir or Rashield. 2 from Wanrei.
1 from Tia.
That one is Mamodo Battles. That's her ultimate spell in the game. And 1 from Maestro. I missed this one. 1 from Maestro. This was from Mamodo Battles as well. Then we have another one for Barancha, and that would be her ultimate spell from Mamodo Fury. So again, 31 video game exclusive spell.
39.
I missed this one. 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 I missed this one.
39. 39. 39. 39.
Oh my god! Wow!
Now, I've only noticed background characters for Dream Tag Tournament. These were Kalulu and I believe the third stage as a spirit, the Magnificent 12 in one of the other stages, Fado, and again one of the other stages too, like one of the later stages. The 2 Roadnos in the ice stage, and Liam and one of the other stages. Raku went to the Tokyo District Court about a certain issue that he had with Shogaku Khan when they lost 5 of his colored works. He demanded over 3 million yen, but without going too far into it, he ended up only getting 500,000 yen for compensation. The dispute started June 2008, 5 years after Zatch Bell released, and ended after the next month. This was when he decided to stop doing business with Shogaku Khan and moved on to Kodansha. His first work with Kodansha being Animal Land.
In one of the extra pages at the end of a chapter, which this one was in the middle of the Fado arc, there's an extra page for this certain scene where Susie and Zatch were sitting together, and Susie was trying to ask Zatch for getting this robot for him. And it sort of cut away here, where Zatch was saying, do you mean Vulcan, or do you mean... Now, this one might be a little debatable since we don't really see what they're talking about, like they never show what the item is. However, it's very likely, given the context of we're talking about a teenager, and she's feeling alone at this time, and we all know that, and it's very, very well known how she's really into Kyo, that she's talking about her vibrator. One can interpret this as using a certain other sex toy that looks like a robot, but it's very likely it's a vibrator. Despite having all these grand scale battles, all these spells to tear apart environments, what never happens is that the human partner is killed in battle, which again is very surprising and very ironic. In the Japanese version of Mamodo Fury, Barry can be seen drinking a certain alcohol during one of the game's loading screens. It's probably vodka. Now when it comes to the tiers for the spells, okay, first of all, first spells are usually the weakest spells, and the last spells are typically the strongest spells in a Mamodo's repertoire for the spellbook. When it comes to the actual tiers and how one can tell the difference between other spells just by looking at the names, there's only a few things to keep in mind. Well, other than the fact that the shorter named spells are usually the weaker ones. Okay, so from weakest to strongest, if you hear Aruk, Ron, like Zakir, like Atskir, you have to really hear out the suffixes a little more than prefixes, but prefixes tend to be important as well. Then after those spells you have Ga, which means stronger, and Gigano, that usually means bigger, and most of the times it's stronger than the Ga spells. Sometimes you'll see Ma. There's actually a lot of middle named tier spells for this area, but above all else you would have the Dioga, and Dio is above that one. The Shin spells are a lot of times the strongest spells in a spellbook for a Mamodo. For those that kept in mind how Zolfus has mind control, now the most notable case with this is of course Coco, his partner, who yes has been under mind control for a long time. It can be debatable whether Coco was under control or not in this case. It's happened during nighttime as place, and it shows Coco giving Zolfus a hug. Now, it could be due to her getting attached to Zolfus, but bear in mind that she's being controlled the whole time. Sure, there's a note somewhere that she's developed a negative personality because of all this, and she's actually being mind controlled. That would mean that Zolfus is virtually hugging himself, which is a very questionable action to say the least. It's very important for Mamodo to have a partner that can read and cast the spells whenever they read out each spell from the spellbook, and this will be called the pair's compatibility. Now, I found this to be very vague and not all that explained for the series, so it seems a lot more like a trial and error sort of thing. So the dub is very faithful compared to the original, a little more than people would figure, where they change very little dialogue when it comes to the characters' lines.
Now, this might be a video in and of itself, but comes to the general context, what's going on in the shows and the episodes, all that stuff is actually very faithful. In episode 12, which is one of Brago's episodes, Sherry is told her backstory to the viewer, and we see how that backstory plays out, where her mother is very abusive of her, and she was calling her a failure to her own family, basically. All that drove Sherry to do this certain action. Now, the anime depicts this as Sherry going to this bridge and standing at the edge of it while it's raining. Of course, the rain, like, I think you know what the sort of setting is. Now, it doesn't really show what happens, but given the fact that Sherry is saved out of the river thanks to Coco. So yes, Sherry as a kid tried to commit suicide. Which, yes, needless to say, this is a very dark moment for the series. Now, while I couldn't find the exact number of sales for the manga, all I could find is that it indeed sold 22 million copies. The Japanese version of Mamodo Fury's UI is actually different from the US release. And the Japanese version, whenever Mamodo does a spell, they actually pop in on the screen with the camera on them while they run through the field. This one could be moved up, but I'll just keep it here. Mamodos actually have unique abilities outside of spells, such as Zophis with his flying and mind control, Rain with his ability to change his appearance, Leo with his curses, and Zabaz with his wings, allowing him to fly, and technically be able to swipe away the Zakir spell. Again, these do not require spells casted in order to use them. Those are a few examples, and there are more out there. So I'm not sure where you would find this, but Kyo's mom's name is Hannah. So Hannah Takamine. Again, I don't know where you would find that. But I've looked at a good majority of the character intros. I may have missed it, but yeah. The spells have a lot of elements to them, but I'm making sure these are types I'm talking about, which are pretty separate from the elements shown in the spells. The types are Sword, Strengthening, Shield, Speed, Armor, Claw, Divine, Mechanical, Trickery, and Beast. These are pretty self-explanatory too. There's a chance someone may have a better winning streak, but as far as what we've seen, at least in the anime, as far as what's shown, as well as the manga, Brago has the largest winning streak in the series. There's around 30 to 37 Mamodo that he's taken out, along with Sherry, which has this boast and just how powerful Brago is. And I say winning streak because the only times where he's been beaten was against, of course, Clear Note in that first battle, and then there's the final battle. Other times, he's been just winning all the time. So yes, that's what Brago's winning streak is like. A bit early in the anime, there was a time where Suzy and Kyo were walking down the street, and Suzy was able to know about Kyo knowing about Megumi, and she was pretty mad about this fact. Despite this, Suzy is still a Megumi fan. So certain facts like these I actually found in the interviews, such as this one. So the reason behind Zatch's lines on his face is actually rather simple. It can play into the fact how he opens his mouth when he does the Zakir spell. Raikou designed Zatch with lines on his face, so it would help distinct him from the other children. Even though me personally, I'd say Zatch rather distinct even without the lines, but this helps distinct him even further. If you see any other Mamodo with this, it's the same reason. I was asked about this once before, and I just didn't know how many of these were. So, episode 5, 12, 57, 60, 77, 88, 93, and 98. Sure, I'm a Brago fan, but if you ask me, Brago should have 3 times as many appearances as these, especially if we're talking about Zatch's main rival. Balgam EO's partner, Dahlia, seems to be the only insane partner. The reason behind this isn't known, but yes, whenever Dahlia is seen on screen, she's usually laughing or casting spells. So yes, pretty insane stuff. As opposed to the fact that she isn't being mind controlled by Sophis is evident too.
As mentioned before about the whole compatibility thing, Ancient Mamodo are able to have another partner to them due to the fact that their next partner is a descendant from their original partner. However, Zophis, if I remember right, Zophis noted how there's still like a chance where they can't be compatible still. I might miss like 1 or 2 notes about this one, but my impression is that he went through a bit of a trial and error thing when it comes to this. So yes, it is possible that you can actually have more than one partner if you live long enough and if you find the right partner. So think what you will there. Now there are other times where Mamodo can actually cast their own spells in the series. As far as I've gathered, those times would be if you are somehow sent to the in-between world, such as the case with Maestro. Another time is if you hold the wand that was in the side story for after the manga ended, which yes, if you hold the wand, you're able to cast your own spells. Bao actually came from Zatch's father, who could have gave it to Zeno, given how he saw how Zeno would be. He decided to give it to Zatch, while giving Zeno all this training, even at a very young age. So yes, this was passed down. In the Japanese games and any other Japanese release of the series, Zatch is often saying Unu all the time. Now for the longest, I couldn't figure out why he would say this, but apparently this was because the king himself says Umu as his little speech quirk. So this was like a thing that was passed down in a sense to Zatch, but he says Unu, and Mamodo saw that as a sign of regalness. I don't believe it was explained in the manga, but yeah. So in the very early chapters of the Zashbow manga, the designs for the Mamodo were pretty terrifying, to say the least. Just look at Brago, Raycom, and that dog Mamodo, and you'll see what I mean. It's kind of nightmare fuel-ish. And then how they look in the anime is night and day. So this one could be moved up too, but Lady Susan, the girl with the big breasts who just slaps on her chest, she is what one would consider a boob gaga character. For anyone that was wondering why she's like so weird like this is why. And this is not the first time. There's also like the wife of that one teacher. As far as I've seen, there are 2 cases where you could technically play as Raikou, and that is in the second tournament game. And I say technical because you're playing as Vulcan in the latest Dream Tag tournament game, but the caster for Vulcan is actually Raikou himself. Anyone that's tried to complete the game, it's very needless to say just how hard it is to actually unlock Vulcan. So the white book is actually the 101st book for the 101st Mamodo. What this can do is whoever tries to cast a spell on whoever holds the white book, the receiver can actually absorb the attack with the book and can actually copy the spell itself from the caster. Once absorbed, that spell is also gone from the caster as well. The purpose of this book was in case a Mamodo went rogue in the human world. It was done by Wiseman, and this is how he became a very powerful villain in the first Zatch Bell movie. In rough draft designs, Susie had long hair instead of the short hair she has now. There's no exact real explanation, but what I can give you is that this was what Raikou had in mind for her at first, but over time, as he thought more about Susie's character, he decided to give her short hair to match her personality, which I'd say is pretty fitting. This one could be moved up as well, but Mamodo are seen to have a very big appetite. Like Zatch is usually shown to eat very big things, such as the yellowtail, and Braga was able to eat a whole crocodile, and he eats it with no problem too. So yeah, the Mamodo in general have very big appetites. This one can be moved up as well, but it can be seen in episode 52. Penny has Zatch on her panties. So yeah. Now when it comes to the fandom, I see a lot more, or at least I personally run into a lot more foreigner fans than US fans. Because like someone was able to give me a translation of a Portuguese guidebook for the Dream Tag tournament game. So as well as me just finding like a lot of like Portuguese translation for pages, and then there are other times where I normally see like indie footage of Zatch Bell on YouTube or whatever. So yeah, a lot of foreigner support I noticed. It's actually interesting. Because like, if you look into the fandom, it's pretty likely you'll see that too. So originally, Raikou wanted the series to be about Kyo, or the main character in this case, I suppose, would have, instead of a Mamodo or demon, he would have a toy knight, and it's basically about them fighting other toy knights, kind of in the same way. But when it came down to making a series for this, the editor said, we'll make him cuter. So Raikou went with a more appealing approach, which is what we get now with the Mamodos and how they look and turn out to be. So I say that's a better move. Mamodo children are inspired from Raikou watching children. This is another one of those things I found from an interview, and that's what I took from it. So he didn't provide that much information, what I gathered. Whether this is on some To Catch a Predator type of deal, or maybe he just does in his pastime, I'll leave that up in the air there. Here's another one from the interviews. Raikou's favorite games were RPGs,
Notably the games from the Final Fantasy and Dragon Quest series.
so that's one of the things that he does in his pastime. Now this is a bit on the theory side. I don't know who came up with this, but Lila and Pamoon seem to be related or connected in some sort of way, due to the fact that their spells are actually very similar. The fact that they're space themed, and I believe they were next to each other on the last page. There's some sort of connection there. In Chapter 243, it is actually seen that Ellie was able to activate the Anzataka ability once before. This was when she was fighting off internal demons that were inside of Fandom. And it was in the control room, if I remember right. It actually went over my head, so I had to do some research to find that out. It's one of those things I had to kind of look up too, but Balgam EO, the EO in his name stands for Intolerant Overlord. Some localization could have happened here where they could have changed the E into an I, because they actually used how it sounds in Japanese to come up with this sort of abbreviation, as in Isu for intolerant. It sounds like it makes an E sound, so they just roll with that when it comes to the E part. And O is so explanatory, still makes the O sound. So through enough determination and willpower, Zatch's spellbook can become golden. Now in the manga, it's actually different from the anime. In the manga, when Zatch's spellbook actually turned gold, it was actually able to use, I believe, the most powerful spells from all the other contestants, if I get a clear note, and then be able to use his ultimate spell that was in his spell book. Now in the anime, it's actually very different, where he actually gets a very massive power boost from his blood turning gold, and this can be seen in episode 149, where again he gets like a massive amp, where his spells pretty much become like Shin level in terms of power. So yeah, it's actually very different from the manga there. So I don't know where you will find this information as well, but Earth was actually based off of Zatch's original design as a knight. So I couldn't find, I don't think it can be found even, of how Zatch originally looked. Maybe someone can provide that for me, but assumably this is how Zatch would originally look when you look at Earth's design. In a bit of a extra page, it's mentioned before how, as his usual depiction, he draws himself in this little extra page, and he is shown using a lot of salonpas, mostly because of his shoulders getting very stiff from making so many pages, you know, the usual deal when it comes to being a mangaka, especially for a long-running series like this. So I might have seen one or two people mention about this before, but the track from Mamodo Theory, where you
fight Zolfus. That track is actually used from the DBZ Super Sonic Warriors 2 OST. Don't believe me? Well, I'll go and play them. There's a chance that this could be a coincidence, but given the fact that Momoa Fury came after Super Sonic Warriors 2, this is likely the case. Speaking more about tracks, this track is actually very hard to find, where you actually find Brago, and the track is called Meadow. Now this one, I don't think I could find on YouTube. I actually made a extended version of this on my music extension channel, so I'll just go ahead and put that in the description. I saw this in an interview as well as someone's video. If Raiku's manga career didn't take off the way it did, Raiku would become a painter. So I couldn't find much information on this, but Viz discontinued the manga after Volume 25 back in June 9, 2009. Now I believe it was because the manga sales was dropping off at the time. So I saw this in an intro extra page. I think you can actually see this on Raiku's blog, but yes, Raiku really does have a motorcycle. I don't know how often he rides it, but yeah, he has that. Okay, this one should be really interesting. So we were given the impression that all these contestants are just kids. Like, I can easily do a big, massive guessing game on what age I think all the Mamodo are, and we'll get a lot of interesting results. Like even like the really big Mamodo are aged around 7, 8. Anyways, there's actually some adult Mamodo. Now this is actually a pretty odd instance here, where we're also including Zolfus' Mamodo. That's adding 1,000 to their age chronologically, but physically they're still the age they were at before being turned to stone. So if we're not including that, the oldest Mamodo would be Rodo, if I'm pronouncing that right, who is Cheetah's Mamodo, and he is 19 years old. Yeah, so he is an adult, but not by a whole lot, you see. So now we have a few runner-ups, and these would consist of, I believe, 3 17-year-olds. Those would be Barry and Cherish, and Keith. He would be the last runner-up. Now, the oldest overall would have to be Xiao Long, who has a chronological age of 1018. So he will be another adult Mamodo too. So yes, Xiao Long, he will be the oldest Mamodo overall in the series. I'm sure no one expected that. I certainly didn't. Now I saw a bit of contingency when it comes to King Bell's spells, and the fact that there are spells that Zatch and Zeno have, but when it comes to the strong spells from Zatch and Zeno, these are things that he doesn't have. Now the reason for this is rather simple. King Bell gave Zatch Bell, so that's a little self-explanatory, and Zeno, he actually made his own ultimate spell. So that's why King Bell doesn't have those. So as far as I've seen, the English fanfic that I've seen that's the longest, that would be this fanfic called Battle of the Heart, and it's rated T, 16 chapters, and has a little over 28,000 words. It's centered around Zatch and Zolfus. Now this one is much longer, again rated T, but this is in Spanish, so hopefully you know Spanish or can use like a Spanish translator. This one has 18 chapters, however, it has over 100,000 words. Wow. So that one was back in 2015, the first one was back in 2020, last year. And I saw a bit of the reviews for this much longer one, and it seemed positive, so I may check it out later. So yeah, those are, especially this one. This is like the longest Zatch Bell fanfic I've found. So Viz,
this doesn't have much of a reputation for censorship. It kind of depends on the series. But for Zatch Bell, there's actually a whole lot of censorship going on. Like the blood, of course. And then there was pretty weird censorship when it came to the guns. Yeah, like there's a whole lot of censorship going on. I think they check out cursing, because like if you actually seen the manga, yeah, like it actually is pretty frequent swearing. So yeah, this one would take a whole video to even go down the list of censorship, but that's what that consists of generally. So after the manga ended, Raikou made, I suppose, post-story, and it's called Zatch Bell Side Story Friends. It's pretty much centered around Zatch and what's going on in the Mamodo world after he becomes the king. And what's kind of funny already is that he's still going through school even though he's the king, so leave that part where you will. There's a few interesting facts, but it's really there for the fans, so I can recommend checking it out, especially if you complete the manga. So fillers. Fillers really aren't much in the anime. So it's actually a total of 26 last time I counted, but they're pretty scarce and pretty scattered actually. And these would be episodes 31 to 35, 89 to 100, and 139 to 150. Yeah, so there's really only 3 periods of filler. So yeah, like that's very much good news. So Ikuma is from Zatch Bell, Makai no bookmark, and at one point in the game, you get to go to a certain person's house, let's say, and he looks a lot like Raikou, and his name is Ikuma, and apparently he's a huge fan of Megumi. If you switch around the letters for Raikou, you could possibly get Ikuma, and then his last name is actually a very close anagram. They didn't change the T. So this was a low trade account, but okay, as far as I've seen, the total amount of cards in Zatch Bell the card battle is 1,674. Now I think this is actually pretty approximate because it was actually hard to find how many exactly there were. But yes, as far as I've seen, it's pretty much this many cards in total. And then in the GBA card game, they go up to the level 12 cards. So count that if you're willing to. I just decide not to. As covered before, no one really dies in the series, not on screen as far as the Mamodo and the partners themselves. Now, there are dead characters in the series, which I know, very shocking. And from what I've gathered, there's only 3. So I'll explain those a little. Now, there's one we see on screen, but it's someone that you don't think about, honestly. And that would be Uncle Tinton, who was the guardian of Fado's esophagus. That guy. And how he died was falling into stomach acid. It was on screen, but you know, yeah. And then there's, okay, so there's actually technically 4, okay, so there's 4 deaths here. Cherish's parents. Cherish's parents actually died. No, Cherish's parents were actually killed by Zophis. While we don't see it, it's noted somewhere. I can't tell you where exactly, but it's noted somewhere. And last we have Sherry's mom. Now, I know, is that surprising as it seems? I didn't know either. Now, we do not know how she dies, so there with that one. This one would demand for a much longer video. Like, to cover this one as a whole would probably take me about a whole hour, maybe even 2 hours. Since we're talking about 100 Mamodo, well, a little over 100 Mamodo. But anyway, so there's a lot to notice here and unpack for you guys. And recognize too, there's a lot of tendencies going on. And what I discussed before with the tiers 4 spells, that's very important too. But to jump into it, you also notice that each Mamodo has their own sort of rhythm to their spell names. So, okay, if you hear something like Sin, it usually means a shooting spell. Amu, I think I saw like 1 or 2 variants for this one. It would mean arm, as one would guess. Rook, the Rook spells are usually either enhance or transformation sort of spells. They can relate to trickery spells too, like you'll see us a lot for consummate spells, of course. Sharudo, I've seen it sometimes just being called shield, which is, shield, yeah. And then you have the more exclusive variants to this, like for example, foe. Foe, that's in clear note spells. When you hear foe, it means use a defense spell. So these are the defense spells here. It's already like a very good example. For example, Amu, the Super Refo. That one, he has his hands come out to nullify spells, so it is a defensive spell. And it includes him having another pair of arms to defend himself, so yeah. Like, I think you see what's going on. And then, this one has a lot of variants too with the shooting spells. These are Kier, Care, and Core. What I'm talking about is Jakir, that one's Hides, Care, that's a Care, and then Core, that's from Raycon. So like a lot of very interesting parallels with spell to spell, and a lot of them borrow from each other like this. I guess another example before I close, like the Rook spells can attribute to speed as well. And if I ever get around to doing this sort of thing where I cover virtually every spell, I kind of can't do that. You'll hear a lot of similarities if I were to ever cover this whole topic. In the Japanese version of Mamodo Battles, Zatch has Zegaruzum. Now, I did not know that the US version has Zegaruzum as well. And when Kyo does it, even in the US version, it comes out as Zegaruzumu. So, to do this, I believe it was quarter circle, like it's a sort of quarter circle motion, and it looks pretty weird. Now, it doesn't have it on the menu, so we really had to screw around to even have this come out in the US version. I'll have it up on the screen so you know what the input is. So yeah, give it a shot, see if you can do it. So remember me saying here and there about the card game? Well, I have good news for you card players. There is an app game out there called Zatch Bell Golden Memories. This is a Japanese only app game for the card game. Now if I remember right, I believe it released 2018, 2019. Might be just a little off. It might be the newest game in the Zatch Bell series. It's very up to date too from what I saw. So go through whatever means that you can to play it if you're a US player or just not from Japan. So yeah, I say I can recommend it. I don't think there's much wrong with the game. So these next few, I kind of added at the last minute, along with another one for the next layer. There's actually 2 OVAs. I don't know where you would find this. These 2 OVAs would be called Ogon no Chichi Womotsu Otoko. That's one that actually features Double F, which is a little of a very in joke from one episode where Fulgore is featured in his own movie, and that's what this OVA is about. It's centered around him getting boobs back. I'm not joking. That's actually the story. Then the second OVA, Zatch Bell Hashire Gash Uba Wamarita Umagon. That one is one where Ponygon gets kidnapped. Zatch had to save him. It's a little bit more basic story. Okay, I was watching a little of the first OVA. I was busting a gut on it. I haven't seen the other one, but really it's there for fans, so have at you there. So this one I had to be told about, actually. I never knew about this. Maybe if you
are actually following these guys on Twitter, you would know about this. So Hypeland is a clothing brand sort of company. They have their own site where you can buy a lot of things. It is very catered towards anime merch, and they pretty much said they're going to soon get to Astro Boy, I forgot what the other one was, and Zatch Bell clothing as well. Soon. So whenever soon it is, they're going to get to it. I really can't wait. Just know that the clothing tends to be very expensive, so keep an eye on it if you really want to get some Zashbow merch from them. Okay, this one I kind of had to be told about too, but I heard some murmurs about this one, which is the Zashbow Cafe Comics. It's actually a little self-explanatory. So these are 16 volumes that are actually centered around, I believe the partners work at this cafe and they're serving their Mamodo. I think that's what I gathered. I haven't looked into all of it, but it's something for the fans. I think it's recommendable. So again, 16 volumes, some of your favorite characters. And these are actually where some of the best covers came from. Even though the Japanese covers for the manga are very good too. The first volume I've seen being used very often from this one, so that's interesting. And then volume 15, I think everyone knows that I'm a Braga fan at this point, so yeah, looks really good. So the dub had its own unique OST. It was actually very fitting. And then, of course, everyone knows about the first opening. However, these don't seem to be obtainable through physical means. What you'll have to do is use some sort of background noise and speech remover program. Like, I don't know any that are good at doing that. So that's what you have to do if you were to hear this sort of soundtrack. So the 26 known albums, these are still obtainable. I'm not sure where you would come across them without looking them up. As far as I've seen, all or most of them are still available. And don't be surprised if they're short on stock with these. So a guidebook for the Zatch Bell Dream Tag Tournament has been incomplete for the longest time. Until recently, I've seen a completed guide. I'll put it in the description and put it on the screen somewhere. And yeah, it's very useful. I haven't tested it. But yeah, with this guide that someone shared on Reddit, you should now be able to get Xeno and complete the game. Like, I remember trying to use that code that you get when you complete the last tournament, and it didn't work. So I just asked me if you're stuck on that. I know I was stuck on it for a good minute. Well, I think most people should be able to figure that one out. Now, pairings in Zatch Bell, to say this is like the most popular, it really isn't saying much with this sort of series. It feels like it has zero focus on relationships, which is a little ironic since partners in the Mamodo seem to be very close usually. Now pairings, I don't see them cross much at all without some consistency. The most consistent I've seen, however, which I say is the most popular pairing, is between Brago and Sherry. Yeah, I've seen some raunchy posts about this one, to say the least. So think what you will there. I say that, but I'm gonna come back to it actually. Okay, so for this one, I had this one reply to me on a video that helped me with explaining the Zekaruzan spell in the English release of Mamodo Battles. Okay. So instead of me explaining very relatively, let me just say this little word for word. Back when the Zatch Bell CCG message board were still up and running,
a lot of fans from the community played the game, and one of them has shared this discovery while they were fooling around in training mode. Okay, so let me just read this part here. I wish I could find out who it was so I could credit them, but the forums where this took place have been deleted by Bandai years ago. It's impossible to check. So Bandai took it down, probably because it sounds like a lot for forums. I don't really say much about this. I could have put it somewhere. I've seen a lot of Zatch Bell forums that just get taken down mysteriously, and Bandai was one of the things that were taking them down. So yeah, most likely because they didn't see much activity going on. It was like they had to keep paying to have the server up for the site. It's that sort of thing. Yeah, that might be why they took it down like that. Now the Flash games, there's actually two. So there's the Volgore dancing one, which I believe was on CartoonNetwork.com. That, or it was on the US site. I could be sure it was on the Cartoon Network one, because I remember playing that along with the Ben 10 game. It was all on the same site. I even showed my older cousin at the time. I wish I had proof of this so y'all know what exactly I'm talking about. Then there's the Yellowtail Flash game. Never got a chance to play that one. I don't think I ever knew about it. That one might have been on the actual Zatch Bell site. These two were called Zatch Catch and Boing Boing Folgore. So that's what those were. However, these were available on this French site called Very Zatch Bell. Unfortunately, this fan site no longer works ever since 2015. So we're on the Rule 34 one. Okay, so I didn't really look into any of them. I just saw a total somewhere without looking into any of it for obvious reasons. And yeah, there's only a total of 55, at least on this site. Chances are you might find more, but it's best that you don't find more. So let's just give it at that. So this next one, I had to be told about this one actually. So this one is the 2 dub exclusive recap specials. Now, I actually don't know about this one. If I ever do a part 2 of this or something like that, I'll make sure to include it there. So I've actually personally been on this US Zatch Bell site. Now I think this might have been a subcategory for, I'm not sure, because I remember Shaman King used to have something like this. There's a good chance that Cartoon Network or Toonami had a subcategory for this. I had to really check back into it, but I remember being on the site now, and it had pretty basic details for the Zatch Bell series. The most I remember about was it had a number of GIFs on it. Again, I wish I had pictures for this. And it had a loop of the Zatch Bell main theme playing instrumentally, pretty much the ending credits theme. Now when it stopped working exactly, I actually don't know. Chances are it stopped working within a year. If anyone knows anything about it, I would like to know. So there have been very few Zatch Bell fan games out there. I really do believe that fans should definitely get on something like this. It seems like something very fun people could put time into. Now, this Unreal Engine fan game, I just don't have the title of it on me right now, but it seems like a bit of a remake of Mamodo Fury, which I do believe Mamodo Fury should have its own sort of remake, because that game really should have some improvements. They ever need some, so it can be more playable. Yeah. Now this would be where I would end the Iceberg, but I had this part called Theories Dump. So Theories Dump, these are actually my personal theories. I haven't came across any fan ones really, across Discord or Reddit. Maybe I need to dive a little more into Reddit, but anyway, so these are my theories. The books, everyone notices that the books actually have a lot of pages in them. They aren't, with 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. This is actually a full book. I say the spell books themselves have about 50 pages in them. So theoretically, a mole could possibly have 30 spells, or maybe even over 40 spells. And they got close enough to their partner, or they just gain them over time. Because like how it works is that the closer you get to your partner, the more spells you have, or a burst of emotions come out of you. Like some sort of conviction happens to where you get a new spell, basically. So if you get that over and over again, you could theoretically just have more spells come to you this way, but it will really depend on the user. Seeing as how some Mamodo only end up having 2 or 3 spells. Then you have Zatch, who has over 12, Brago, pretty much 20, something like that. Tying a bit more into this, what is actually a little baffling is how Lian and Wanrei are in a relationship, right? But they don't have nearly as many spells as Brago and Sherry. So, with the implications saying to us that the closer you are to your partner, the more feelings you have, the more spells you get, basically. I'm of the camp that Brago and Sherry have had some special times together, let's say. If it really goes there and they have more spells than Lian and Wanrei, that's my theory. Y'all can take that with a grain of salt. And then, yes, I do actually believe that with enough dedication to their Mamodo, other Mamodo can theoretically have their own ultimate spells. I don't think this one's out there, but I do believe with Conchame's last spell, he could possibly beat Clear Note. The thing is that we're talking about Clear Note, so there's a chance that he really can't beat him. Also, other thought that Raikou took out Conchame just to avoid this whole debacle with Conchame's last spell. Now, I would go into territories about let's say Hyper Children, but I think we can stop there.
So I know there's a lot of implications, and not everyone's comfortable with the idea of having human / Mamodo hybrids between Mamodo and partner, and then yeah, I'm pretty sure Raikou didn't want to do that for I think obvious reasons. Now let's not think about weird ones. Let's not even include Brago and Sherry. We'll just think about Wanrei and Lian on this one, which I have a little of a personal theory, and I wouldn't be surprised if anyone else thought this, but yeah, they're banged before at some point, at least at some point. They were just too close. Okay, this is probably my last theory here. I may need to think more about this, but okay. Since Zatch was able to, I believe this is actually non-canon, but okay, let's say the whole thing about Zatch's movie exclusive spell being canon here. Who's to say that there are some Mamodo out there that have team-based spells where it actually has to have multiple partners saying out the spell so the Mamodo can cast it. Now, what we're seeing here with Zatch's is that it's a very powerful spell, right? So who's to say Mamodo can have possibly 3 of these, or have a spell book that's based on that? That would kind of suck. I'm not gonna lie, but I believe it's worth a thought, especially if Mamodo has about 30 of these. Let's say things will get interesting. And with that, that's the Iceberg. Oh boy. Okay, I've been recording and charging my darn laptop for a long time now. And yes, I hope you all enjoyed this. Of course, I appreciate some comments to let me know about whatever information everyone's gathered. Maybe do a part 2 of this. I'll have to see. I got way more information than I would think on this one. Again, this is my 4th or 3rd series, but even then, I still really love the series, and I really do enjoy it, believe me.
and I wish a lot more people got into it. And even then, I can see people, I can see a lot of fans just missing like a lot of this stuff. It's easy to miss too, so yeah, hope this helps them if they come across it by any chance. This is kind of a little more for me in case I want to look back at it, show my girlfriend, or show anyone else that's curious. I don't know, it depends on what the future brings me. But yeah, it was a lot of fun. I mean, this was tiring, but a lot of fun. I'm glad I was able to finish it, I really am. And yes, this is me, Trey, and I'm out, and I'll be seeing you all with the next video. Take care. Whether this is on some To Catch a Predator, whether this is the girl with the big breasts, her that slaps her boobs around, or like, or who just slaps on her chest. One from Kalulu, that one is Mamodo Battles. Mamodo Battles, that's her ultimate spell in the game. The first progress of is this one's name is Hannah. So Hannah, yeah, like especially thinking about especially thinking about Wanray Emery. Fuck, one more time. Especially thinking about Wanray Emery. Fuck. Oh, my Japanese. Alright, let's see here. So what is this? 1, 6, 9? Yeah, that's 9. 13. 17. Yeah, 17. 21. 21. 23. Okay. Plus 2, so 23, 25, 26, 27. Okay. Whoa, one more thing. Where on earth is... Oh no! Oh no, where's Pony gone? Hold up. Okay, there he is. Oh, in there, I recounted. So how many is that? Oh man. So that 26. This is 4. So 30. All right, we got it. Okay. So again, 30 video game exclusive spells in the series. And this was how many? Bringing us to a total of 1, 2. So okay. You know what? Hold up. So there were 31 video game exclusive. So there are 31 video game exclusive spells in the series. I did another recount, and I just remembered the last one.